battle there far from over.
And where you can see the fire already burned through this area, scenes like this all over. The winds expected to pick up again tomorrow, and many homeowners already told they could be next on the evacuation list. Whit.
The threat still a major concern. Faith Abube, thank you. Now to those massive cuts at the Department of Health and Human Services. 10,000 people at the nation's health agencies being laid off, and that's on top of the nearly 10,000 staff already cut through buyouts and previous layoffs. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. is saying it will be a painful period, but promising his department will do more with less. ABC's senior political correspondent Rachel Scott at the White House.
Tonight, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., announcing a massive overhaul of the agency that oversees America's health, supervises Medicare and Medicaid, and monitors food and drug safety. It includes cutting 20,000 people from the department, a quarter of its workforce.
This will be a painful period for HHS as we downsize from 82,000 full-time employees to around 62,000. I want to promise you now that we're going to do more with less.
But experts, including Dr. Richard Besser, former acting director of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, insists you can't cut that many jobs without people in America, quote, suffering.
I worry that in this drive to cut positions and save money, critical programs that impact on people's lives are going to be cut as well.
Kennedy also plans to consolidate agencies within HHS.
We're going to eliminate an entire alphabet soup of departments and agencies while preserving their core functions by merging them into a new organization called the Administration for a Healthy America, or AHA.
The FDA will lose 3,500 employees, and the CDC will lose 2,400. That agency also narrowing its scope to focus on preparing for and responding to epidemics and outbreaks. For decades, the agency has handled so much more, monitoring nationwide health trends, including chronic diseases, firearm injuries, and overdose deaths.
CDC has incredible expertise in heart disease, in cancer, in smoking prevention. If CDC loses the ability to work on those, someone else is going to have to pick that up, and no one's going to do it as well as CDC.
And it's still unclear how those sweeping changes will impact the CDC. But tonight there is other breaking news from the White House. The president announcing that he is pulling the nomination of Congresswoman Elise Stefanik of New York to become the next ambassador of the UN. The president saying that with a very tight majority in the House, he doesn't want to take any chances of Republicans losing that House seat. So now Stefanik will remain in Congress. Whit.
All right, Rachel Scott with those new developments. Thank you. Tonight, a Tufts University grad student is in ICE detention. Federal agents swarming in to arrest the woman outside her Massachusetts home wearing masks and plain clothes. And late today, what Secretary of State Marco Rubio said when asked about her arrest. Here's ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky.
This is the moment federal agents in masks and hoodies detain Tufts University doctoral student Rumeysa Öztürk. The Turkish national handcuffed and led away, one of at least a half dozen international students targeted in recent weeks after voicing support for Palestinians.
If ICE comes to your door, keep the door closed.
Overnight, more than 1,000 demonstrators protesting her arrest at Tufts. Öztürk's attorney said it appears the only thing she's being targeted for is her right to free speech. But the Department of Homeland Security accused her of engaging in activities in support of Hamas.
Every time I find one of these lunatics, I take away their visa.
Öztürk, a Fulbright scholar, co-wrote this op-ed criticizing Tufts for failing to recognize Palestinian genocide. Hamas is not mentioned.
She makes sure that she doesn't offend anyone, let alone, possibly incite violence. She is not that person. She's not aggressive.
And tonight, the University of Alabama says one of its doctoral students, Iranian national Alireza Daroudi, has been detained. Detaining these students is part of the Trump administration's hardline immigration policy. That crackdown is also sending suspected gang members to a prison in El Salvador, visited by the Homeland Security Secretary.
If you come to our country illegally, this is one of the consequences you could face.
No charges have been filed against any of the detained students. With their right to free speech is protected, the administration says their right to be in the country is not. And Whit, it will likely be up to the courts to decide. Whit.
Aaron Katursky for us tonight. Thank you. We head overseas now in that deadly tourist submarine tragedy in Egypt. At least 6 people killed, including children. New information tonight and the urgent investigation into how this happened. Here's ABC's Trevor Ault.
At least 6 people are dead tonight, including 2 children, after a tourist submarine sank off the coast of Egypt. 50 people were on board when the underwater sightseeing boat crashed into a coral reef, according to an early investigation. The urgent rescue operation unfolding in the Red Sea near the popular resort of Hurghada. Dozens pulled from the water.
Everything is okay.
Local officials visiting survivors in the hospital. At least 23 people injured. Authorities say all those killed were Russian nationals. The submarine seen in this promotional video, it can dive up to 80 feet underwater. It's not clear if the vessel that sank today was fully submerged at the time.